Hello and happy time zone, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rookery's Archives. My name is Louise, I am your host. And let's be honest, if you can't tell by the title, this episode is a very special bonus one. Because exactly a year ago, I posted the very first episode of the podcast. It's been a year. Oh my god, it's been a year. What even? Besides that realization that time is somehow spiraling away from us, I'm honestly really touched. I when I started this, I never intended it to go this long or to be as, quote unquote popular that it did. And now it's a year old and it's my baby, it's my creative baby, and I'm primarily a writer, so I don't really have that experience doing audio stuff, and doing it on my own was something I taught myself over lockdown just so I could have a hobby and try something different, and you lot really enjoy it, and I'm ever grateful. When I started planning this back in summer of 2020 for the first episode to go out in September, I never intended for everything that would have happened to have happened. For me, this was just going to be a podcast to talk about lore and nerd out for a bit and, kind of go out of my comfort zone, and now look at me, I've had 10, I suppose 9, soon to be 10 episodes of amazing content and great responses and people actually coming to discuss things with me. I've had guest spots on some podcasts, some of them like pretty big ones, like the Hook Play podcast. I was not expecting that. It's one of those things where, sod it, I'll ask, and then it actually happens. I'm still amazed that I could do that, and I'm still amazed that, people are inviting me to come and talk about this, and that they will come and ask me about it too. Because that's another thing that I didn't really expect when I started this. Not to have a quote unquote reputation for being a nerd. I mean, one, it's kind of in the name, the Nerdy Archer, but more in the fact that people in certain communities now know me for this, and I've won, like, fun competitions that we've done or quizzes for lore because I am that much of a nerd. Oh my god, that sounds so pretentious, but I hope you know what I mean. Like, people will know me as that girl who likes Syndicate, or um, come and DM me about questions, or tag me and stuff on Discord servers, and oh god, the conversations, but we'll get into that later. I will say, I did have a script for this. We're ad-libbing 90% of it because chaos! Let chaos reign, everybody. But yeah, when I began this podcast, it was the intention of having it solely focus on a lore podcast, or being more like the factual ones. So we're having a deeper focus of the history of something and how it implements into the Assassin's Creed universe rather than what I ended up doing. Which is honestly not a bad thing. Like, I enjoy the change, but when I started looking into what I was doing, and I noticed a couple of things, primarily with what the podcast was about, there were many gaps in the lore, and some of it contradicts itself. Whether it's the same person being seen in two places at once on the same recorded date, or a characterization not making sense given previous character development, cough cough, Edward Kenway, cough cough. If you talk about something for long enough, eventually you'll just end up moving to do it yourself. So I talked and discussed about trying to fix the lore for so often that I just went, sod it, screw it. I am going to make a full podcast full of doing this. And you apparently like it. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. The other thing that I noticed, especially in the planning phase of this, there were, and I guess still are, far fewer women than men hosting and creating video and audio content for AC, particularly on YouTube. All men YouTubers, solo podcast hosts, I could name, as particularly at that point where I started, or with a quick Google or a quick YouTube search, were men. Now, I can't change that single-handedly, but I think there was a point where I just went, I want to change this in any way I can. So I think particularly in the wake of what was revealed with Ubisoft last year and kind of with this year, that I wanted to just keep highlighting women. I wanted to keep proving that, it made me aware that there was a disparity in some of the coverage and some of the representation, and I wanted to change that. It's probably very optimistic of me to be like, I can change all the problems, but I want to at least be part of the solution. Like, if you want to start a podcast, if you want to start the AC podcast, if you don't know where to start, ask me. Just take this as your sign to start. Take this as your invitation to come on as a guest if you want just to dip your toe in and see if that's how you're comfortable you are. Do it. Don't think there are any barriers, because it took me way too long feeling uncomfortable and being like, before turning around and being like, actually, you know what? I want to do it. So just do it. Be proud of yourself. Just have fun. I've kept a copy of every single script I've written for this podcast, I shall have you know, published or in the varying degrees of completion, including the early episodes where my mind was solely on the lore and nothing else, before it got very, creative based. Boy, has my writing changed, and how my critical thinking has developed over a period of time. But it's, like I said, it's slowly become far more than that. As a fan and later as a mentor, which is definitely something I did not start with the premise of doing. Like, everyone always, the Ubisoft Star Player program was always like a little interesting, maybe dream goal 3 years down the line. And then barely 6 months later, I'm being invited. I actually got the email before Christmas. So that was like a really nice early Christmas present to be like, hi, we want you to come in. I was never aiming to be a mentor, let alone in 5-6 months. I think it's also interesting to look back and see how I changed as a presenter too, not just as the writing point. Like, I don't know if you could tell or if it came across on audio, but until I think the Daughters of Lyrian episode, I was very nervous. I like I don't have a background in audio presenting. I've done a bit of behind the scenes camera work at university with our student TV channel, but being the sole host, being the person who presents everything and then edits and then posts, is terrifying to me. And I know that there are a few episodes where you can hear clicking in the background. That is me clicking a pen because I'm nervous while we're recording. So if you can hear that, that is me messing with a pen that I use to edit my scripts as I continue and keep writing, because wow. But in a way, I think the podcast itself actually helped me become more invested in the fan culture and actually make friends in the community, because I've spoken about this before. When I became a new fan, or when I was a new fan back in 2015 with Syndicate and Unity, I didn't really know anyone. There was all this conception of, you know, the there are gaming sites that are very toxic, and there is a reason why I'm not on Reddit. There is a reason why I will not touch that. But my goal has always been about spreading positivity. Yeah, things are going to be shitty. Things aren't always going to be the best, but one thing I want to do is make people happy and give people really good conversations, and just be fun. And after spending years keeping my interest to myself, I was suddenly having really positive and really cathartic, engaging conversations online, and everyone respecting their ideals rather than just being like, you can't think that, it's stupid, or you can't think that, you're a woman, or why are you doing this is a man's game, which is something that I was very afraid of. Ironically, thinking back, this wasn't my first interaction with the franchise fan base, because in 2016 with the film, I won tickets to go to the fan screening in London, where I met some of the big name figures in the community, like Amazonian cosplay. I vaguely remember just meeting her. I remember meeting some of the people who were, part of the early Mentors Guild, who were, you know, Ubisoft style players who were people behind the ones who came before Community, who I now know on a personal level, which is wild. like, n- like little baby Louise, who is a new like initiate to the franchise, would be like losing her shit right now. Oh god, tangent. Oh god. See, this is why having part script and part ad lib is never a good idea because whoop, that was a large tangent. um, but yeah, where was I? Discussions and discussions. Yeah, they were good, long and short of it. But some of those topics that I ended up having discussions of have now become episodes or are going to become episodes. Like some of them were originally going to be like unpublished fanfic things, like or writing exercises, but I, a creative writer and a history nerd, wrote stuff back in. Like, the next episode, Jennifer Scott will become an assassin. Lydia Fry, the Angel of Mons. We know more about the Daughters of Lyrian. And there's far more that you have not seen yet, which I'm very excited to show you eventually. Even though it was the very first episode, the Lydia First World War discussion is still my favourite, which I've released so far. Purely for the sheer amount of time and work and information that I put into it. As for the script coming soon, there's the Jennifer Scott one, which I adored talking about with people, and the Henry Green biography episode, which is a strong contender purely because I just love Henry. We need more Henry. The Daughters of Lyrian episode has the response which surprised me the most. I was expecting it to be like a really quiet episode because like they're not main characters in Valhalla. They are just like an optional boss fight. Like they aren't always people's first questions about the setting and the lore and the mythology, but you know, I'm a King Lear fan. It's my favorite Shakespearean play. So I made the episode and it pretty much exploded. I wasn't expecting the response. I definitely was not expecting the Twitter page of the AC Wiki to tweet back and be like, with the title Endowment of Lady of Mercia included. Like, what the hell? In a time where everything is causing strife and Twitter is imploding with trying to gatekeep fandoms and community spaces, I just wanted to have a thing where I could show my enjoyment for a franchise that is chaos, while also acknowledging the pieces that could do better in a constructive way. There's so far you can say, well, this is wrong before you have to turn around and go, well, here's a solution, here's how it could be fixed. And I love thinking about it. If I could write for the franchise and make it canon, I would do. Like, I gladly would. This became a platform where I could be positive and upbeat and nerdy and just everything that, you know, you want from a fan, really. You want someone to enjoy your work that you put years into that, you know, kind of shows why. And that's what I wanted to get out of interacting when I became a fan in the first place. And AC is my safe space, like it is for so many other people. It's the games that I play when I can't, when I need to calm down. It's, you know, sometimes I've had a bad day, or like in lockdown, I couldn't, like, we couldn't leave the house. And so what I would do, go for a quick stroll around Victoria, London, or fail at being a pirate. I'm not a good driver. I'm not a good captain. I'm sorry, Edward. I'm very sorry. Um, and like now it's possibly going to be my degree, my dissertation for my degree. That's multi-level nerdery right there, making it academic. uh, the conversations I've had with people since starting to produce content, and even slightly before when I was planning, and the friends I've made over the past year have been invaluable to me. And I will just say, this is the point where I had to pause recording for a bit because I started crying. I love you guys. I love everyone. There are so many people I feel like I need to thank, but we would have a full podcast on its own with me just trying to thank everyone. So, Meek, Ash, Andrew, Declan, Potes, Nicole, Nemo, Rue, Sunny, James. Figures large and small in the community, in private servers, in public ones, Twitter, Discord, YouTube. Everyone is valuable to me, and I can't thank you enough. Hopefully, once the world decides to get back to normal, I'll be able to meet some of you at events, give you that proper hug in person. People are listening to this now, and there is an audience I didn't have back when I was writing earlier episodes during what was perhaps the most chaotic summer of everyone's life. And I guess this is thank you, although that definitely doesn't feel like enough. Thank you for sticking around through varying absences. Thank you for sticking around for the absolute chaos that is me talking about AC ladies. Um, I am no longer just your host and archivist. I am the Rook, the Lady of Mercia. I am a mentor. My name is Louise. I am the nerdy archer, and here's to another year of being a nerd in audio form, and maybe with some surprises still to come. I love you guys. Right. Are we all done with the soppy stuff and the emotional stuff? Because I'm up for some fun. So, I asked on Twitter at the beginning of August, when I knew I wanted to celebrate the year anniversary, that I wanted to do a little bit of a Q&A. And some of you sent in questions, and we're going to answer them now. I've tried to put them in some sort of order, and some of them have kind of already been touched upon in the episode that I've already mentioned, but we're just gonna go into it. I've scripted some of them are going to be ad-libbed because I like to live life in the fast lane. Oh no. Question 1 from James at James Tiddlyquid. How many Evie Fry capes have you made? Sean style snarky question. How many remain unfinished? Well, so for those who don't follow me on Twitter, my dream cosplay build is Evie Fry's coat. I think we've already established that I'm a very big Syndicate fan. Who would have guessed? But my lockdown project, or that I wanted to get done by the end of lockdown, was to make it and wear it. And wear it at the first con that I went to after lockdown. It's still incomplete. It's a lot more difficult than I was intending, particularly for someone who doesn't sew or had no sewing experience before starting this. But I'm getting there. That being said, on AC Day, 21st of December 2020, I shared a picture of one of the shoulder capes that I'd done, which was purple and gold. It was originally supposed to be like a draft idea of an AC Sisterhood themed one because the colours are purple and gold. At the moment, that is now technically my mock-up design, or it's very basic. It's kind of seeing how it would work. Do I count that as one of them? I'm going to. At the time, I wasn't intending it to be the mock-up. I was intending it to be the final thing, so it's being included. And you know what? Had I released this podcast a week earlier, the number would be one fewer than it is now, because I replayed Syndicate for one particular information or a writing reference for the Camo Mansion, and now I'm making the Eagle Dive Cape too. The Eagle Dive Cape too. How was that difficult to say? I've just prepared to make another one. So the total number, in varying degrees of completion, is 4, maybe 5. And none of them are complete yet. And why so many, I hear you cry. You might think me indecisive, which, to be fair, I probably am. But it's actually part of a little feature that I'm building into the coat that I could spoil now, but I think it's fun to have you wait. wait for the final thing to be revealed. So, surprise? No, I'm not telling you. But yeah, 4 or 5, none completed. Locutz said, what's your creative process like? What is your favourite source of research for your work? In a single word, and I uttered it a lot during this podcast episode, it's chaos. You think I'm joking, but really. Depending on the episode, the topic, the relevant news at the time, what's timely, the inspiration can come from absolutely anywhere. Some of them have sprung from discussions I've had with people online, or when I'm reading a piece of dialogue or codex, or they are a question I've had myself while playing, or it's something that's come up as a question with my friend Izzy, my housemate from uni, who has played through the franchise for the first time over the past 12 months. Others are historical or mythological inspired, or factual elements which I see being talked about again and again and again. It's no secret at this point that I'm going to do a full podcast on Henry Green. It's one of my ideas since before I began recording the podcast, because I love Henry. Originally, I was intending for the piece to be released around the first week of December because his birthday is December 9th. But rather recently, there's been a bit more uptake and discussion about more Henry content, included from his voice actor Jazz. Which, yes, Jazz, if you want to come back and talk Henry, please do. I want more Henry content. I want to see it. As for favourite source of research, if you're going to quickly research something and you can't get to the games, or even if you just want a quick summary of everything or a character, the AC Wiki is a goldmine. The random page button has given me so many ideas and just kind of nudged me in different directions for points. It's great. Always a good place to start. Having discussions with people or seeing what's in the news or reveals. Loads of people did stuff about Charles the Fat for Siege of Paris. I did not because I was too busy playing it. I still have not finished it. But I also really love the books. I'm very much a heavy reader, to the point that there is a photo I've taken of my copy of AC Underworld, which is the Syndicate book, and also the Odyssey novelization, which are littered with post-it note tabs, because as I'm reading through the books, I am tabbing, oh, this line makes sense, I think this historical information would be quite good to remember. Oh, I want to research this later, this makes sense, this, I don't want to remember this bit made me cry. And I don't know. I think just limiting it to the games kind of limits your perspective, especially now that the franchise is transmedia. You have a film, you have an audiobook, you have the books and comics. We're having, more games come out that aren't just going to be consoles. We've got, people who do cosplay IRL. We've got tattoos. We've got an initiative that became canon. The tattoo is in the game now, so limiting it to one perspective is that's one thing I've learned, broaden your horizons and just read, even because you do find some gems in there. Okay, more questions from James. Oh god, this tweet has 3. You can pick one actor from the franchise to meet IRL for a general chat and nerd out session. Who do you pick? Which historical period would you like to visit? Did AC inspire your IRL studies, or did your studies lead you to AC? So we're going to answer them in order. Okay, so pick one actor for the franchise to meet IRL. I'm also not going to count anyone I've already met, so I'm not going to count Michael Antonakos, Alexis's VA, because I've already met him. He's lovely. I'm also... I'm not also going to discount Paul and Victoria, who voiced the twins, because while I haven't met them, I feel like people are expecting me to pick that as my answer, and I want to do something a little bit different. Part of me also wants to pick Matt Ryan, which is Edward's VA. I don't know. I probably wouldn't pick Roger Craig Smith as much as I love Ezio and Roger. I probably wouldn't pick him. Oh god, I don't actually know. um, I think I'd say Dan, maybe. Mainly because I love Arno. Arno was the first character I ever played as an AC. Like Syndicate is the one that got me into the games and like cemented its hold on me, but um Unity was the one that kind of kind of brought me into it. Which kind of answers White Wolf Whisper's question as well, which is what was the hook that moment when you realised you were in love? The escape from the Bastille scene. Chef's kiss. A thousand awards. It was just a combination of like not knowing and then watching that bit over and over and over again in someone's playthrough, and like the music, the snark between Arno and Balek, the like cinematics of where you see him dive off and then it pans up to the credits, and oh yes, what an introduction. I absolutely adored it. Just 10 out of 10. But I think I'd narrowed it down to yeah, Dan Jeanette, or I also want to say Noah Watts. I really love Connor. I think no, like from what I've heard, Noah's a really nice guy, and I think a conversation would be fun. Plus, it both of those would give insight into characters that we don't really see that of, and are like kind of not. I don't want to say not well respected, but they aren't as beloved universally as some of the others, or they have more of a negative reception, which is sad because I love them. They're great. Adam and Connor are great. And I totally did not just have a podcast idea. So keep that in mind. Right, question 2. Which historical period would you like to visit? Rue also asked this, but specifically said other than the Victorian era, which is a smart move. Um, I've spoken about it a lot. Syndicate, British. Definitely, if there was an Outlander esque situation where it got sent back in time to a historical period, just send me back to Syndicate. I'd survive. I know the history. I can vaguely get my way around. Um, but well, if we're going for a historical period that's been covered in a game, not Syndicate, not Victorian period, um, not the Crusades, maybe ancient Egypt, ancient Greece. See, I don't think I have a proper certain question answer for this, because it's like asking someone what's your favorite film or what's your favorite book, and then your mind just goes blank. Every time I've come back to this question since seeing the tweet, I've had no answer for it at all. Not because the exclusion of the Victorian period has set me off. I just, why do I have to pick one? Why do I have to pick just one little time period? Because like there's so much I want to see, so much I would want to experience and like find out, and hidden mysteries, and it's difficult to pick one. But I think a period that we know, there's benefits to a period that we know a lot about versus a period we know nothing at all about. Because on one hand, you know what more to expect versus you've got more to learn and more information that you could kind of save and bring back to the present. I just don't know. I'm sorry. This feels like a cop out, but I have no answer for this. And question 3: did AC inspire IRL studies, or did studies lead you to AC? Kind of both. So, the long-winded story is, it's like how I got into Lord of the Rings. I was studying history, and we went on a World War One trip to Belgium, and we went through some of the sites, and then we learned about Tolkien actually fighting at some of these, and then as I was learning more about history, I learned more about Lord of the Rings and read it and watched the Percy Jackson, Peter Jackson trilogy for the first time, and like I learned all the background information, and then sort of started kind of doing the same with AC. When I first started getting into it, it was the guy who got me into it, who's called Connor, funnily enough. We were studying for our history exams, And he was like, "Oh, you're talking a lot about this period in history here. Why not play this?" And then showed me, I think, the Black Flag trailer, the one with Blackbeard, and then the Brotherhood trailer, and then showed me some gameplay of Unity, and like introduced me to some of the lore, and then I just fell into a hole of research, and here we are. We have a podcast now, basically doing that same thing, but you are witnessing the chaos. So you're welcome. But in a roundabout way, now that I'm at university, I'm studying history and archaeology. We get to pick modules that are specific time periods or things, and the games and the periods that it's covered have in turn helped me research particular time periods, or it's helped me want to choose like a thing that I normally wouldn't be think as my thing or my historical period, but I played through it through a game. And like, out of my second year modules, I think 3 out of 8 had some tie-in to Assassin's Creed that I could use. Like, I picked the Viking module because I kind of, well, I liked Vikings, but now people could pick it because we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I've done the French Revolution module, and the very first introductory lecture we had, they closed it off by playing the E3 trailer, and I just sat there, just, I'm living right now. My friends just heard that. I saw the screenshot, and they were, oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God, no. But it's a roundabout way because one thing leads to another depending on what your interests are. My interests are both. Ah, that was a really long answer. I'm sorry. Next question. Next question. From Rhino the Bouncer. Oh my god, Rhino. If you were in charge of a future AC title, could you give us some brief notes on what it would be? From settings, character designs, to significance in the lore, to gameplay design. Ooh. Yes. Hi. Hello. More ladies. More ladies is just gonna be the overarching. Now, it's no secret that creative writing is my passion and I love thinking up games. But I think from a lore perspective, I think I would want it to be something we've already seen the start of and we want to get like a conclusion of. So revisiting a character, revisiting multiple characters. I think, I don't know, part of me is weak and I want to see an Ethan and Cecily Fry, even if it's a short game, because we know that they're there. We know that they're kind of well respected in the Brotherhood, and kind of Ethan's infamous, but we don't know why. And I think the other option is I want an Aya game in ancient Rome. It's one that I think loads of people are saying. I think, you know, wasn't Aya supposed to be the main character of Origins at one point? Like, Bayek was supposed to die and she would carry on. I found her like to be a more compelling character than Bayek, which sounds horrible because I love Bayek. He's such a dad. It's great. But I think Aya and that unknown kind of thing interests me far more, and I want to see more about her and bring it more back to an early start of the Brotherhood and how it transformed from, what Cassandra was doing to what they're doing, and developing it into a Brotherhood in a centralized location to what it would then become under Altair, under Ezio, and then what we saw going forward. Also, why she gets, why she has a tomb in Rome, and yet is buried again in Egypt with Bayek. That is one like I know they still love each other and they never rekindle their love and never get back together, but they still were buried together, which shows they are lovers in the afterlife from Egyptology sort of things. And there's just so much you could cover with this, and I've also studied that period of history, so I'm like, I could see points where it could work. Um, the what other one that I've really wanted to see is something set in either Australia or New Zealand. Um, it's I think it's the only continent we've not seen in a full AC game. We've obviously seen it in the Resurrection Day stuff with Juno in the comics, but that was the comics. It's not the game. I want to see something on that continent, and I think it would be pretty damn neat. You could even have like an Aboriginal protagonist if you did it that way, which would be amazing. I fully support that, and it would be a great way to learn periods of Australian history that I don't know. I don't know how many people outside of Australia would know that history. It'd be great to learn more and kind of raise awareness, kind of like breaking myths about certain periods of history and kind of being more educational, being more like early AC with AC2 or I think that's covered everything I want to say for that. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I could do a full podcast episode on that just alone, like talking through what I want to see. As for a gameplay perspective, I'm not entirely sure. I don't have a background in like game design. I'm more of the, the narrative and the history and the lore and the world building. But I think it would be nice to have a deeper look and have like a more concrete answer to this. And I know there's one more question on here if you've seen the tweet, but that is lore heavy and I want to answer that fully. And so, Michael, I have not missed your question. I'm making a full episode out of it because I've done so much research for Simon Hathaway recently, and I know, shout out to Lisa. Lisa also wants to see me talk about this. So I'm going to and put like a significant amount of effort into it for answering one question. And I think that's it. I feel like I'm gonna have to wrap up this episode again before I start crying again. There's only so many ways I can say thank you, and I've said it so many times this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this, like, little bonus. Well, I say little, it's nearly 40 minutes long episode for the Rookery's Archives. The 1 year anniversary. New episodes will be coming soon. And here's to some surprises along the way, and for another year of being a nerd.